What's going on today, everybody? I am back. I've got a technology review for you guys. It's a little bit technology, a little bit audio, and I'll explain why it's a little bit of both, even though it's a gaming sound card. Today we're talking about the Creative Sound Blaster X G6 right here. Boom. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, you know what, Homebrewed, it's probably just a rebrand of the good old tried and true G5. And, well, chassis and dimension-wise, yes. Internals and feature set, absolutely not. But we're going to go ahead and talk about that. So, let's go ahead and dive in. Well then, Mr. Fancy Pants, if it's not just a rebrand with Dolby added, what is it? Well, it's a different class of device in my opinion. One is an entry-level sound card, does a pretty good job, not the greatest thing in the world. The other one is a phenomenal sound card with a DAC, and that's the important thing. So you can use this thing as a headphone amplifier on the G6, which is something I love that the G5 never really was able to get to. And I have them both here on the desk, and we're going to do some close-up stuff. We're going to talk about them up close and show you the feature set, show you some cool stuff about them. So, here's what we got in the box. We've got our welcome aboard Sound Blaster X Gamers for Life, hashtag Gamers for Life, right? Basically says they care as much about this stuff as we do, being, you know, us being the PC gaming and peripheral consumer, right? We're the people that they really market this towards. And, you know, rightfully so. If there's anything I can say about Creative from being in this industry for so long, I can honestly say that Creative makes a great product and they stand behind their product. I've had issues with my old X-Fi cards way back in the day, and they were able to sort it right out for me. So Creative, you've always got a sweet spot in my heart, but I'm going to do my best to be unbiased. This was not paid. Creative was kind enough to send me this G6 to do the review, but this is in no way a paid endorsement for this product or any Creative product. You know me. If I find something I like, I'll tell you guys about it. So, what else is in the box? Well, you've got your standard USB cable, and you've got an optical cable, which is the G5. If you're a G5 owner, you're probably familiar with this. This is basically, you can set your input as an optical, and you can run this as like a DAC from a full-blown mobile home theater system. So, that's kind of nice. I do dig that. You've got warranty card, user's manual, things like that. This device, I'm not going to lie, was one where I actually had to consult the user's manual a few times because I was so used to the G5. So let's just go over some quick bullet points about the G6 before we do the up-close stuff. So first and foremost, we've got high resolution, which I'm sure you're thinking, oh yeah, high res, sure, whatever. It's 32-bit PCM, dude. That's a big deal with a sampling rate, get this, wait for it, 384 kilohertz. That's a very, 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 very high frequency sampling rate. So with a bit depth of 32-bit and a sampling rate that high, we're talking very serious audio here. And the other thing that I really dig about this, and they put on here that it has the discrete X amp. And well, you're probably wondering what that is. Well, in a standard headphone amplifier sound card, the way that your audio signals processed, your left and right channels, there's an average difference between the output, right? But the channels are not processed individually. You might think, well, that's stupid, it's left and right audio. Why would it not be processed individually? Well, the way it works for the op amp is that both signal paths go through the op amp hands out the data, right? Well, in something like this and something like my Steinberg UR242, you actually have two discrete amplifiers that signal process each channel independently, which is phenomenal. You might think it sounds stupid, but it's the same thing like a moving coil cartridge on a turntable versus a moving magnet. The moving coil is going to have bigger stereo separation because, well, the coil is what moves, not the magnet. So there's a reason moving coil cartridges cost a whole lot more money, but we're not going to go into a whole turntable diatribe right now. Another thing, works on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Switch, and my personal favorite thing, works as a phenomenal headphone amplifier separately from, using it on the computer with USB. You can plug the G6 in with a 5-volt USB wall socket, and boom, you've got yourself a killer headphone amplifier, which for me is one of my favorite features because it allows me to use it with my turntable without needing to run the PC or do anything or run, very hot home theater equipment. I can just plug in the headphone amplifier, plug in the G6 as my headphone amplifier, plug my line in, I'm good to go. So let's go ahead and get into it up close. Okay, so let's talk about the feature sets of the G6. We're gonna go ahead and leave the G6 right there. So the top light here is RGB. It is assignable, so check this out. Let me go ahead and dim the lights. Get a little bit of mood lighting going on. Ooh, look at that. Let's go ahead and get some tones going. Oh yeah. To be honest, sounds stupid, love that feature. You can also put it on solo, which is just a single color, so I'm sure if you have a G5, you're probably very familiar with that look, minus this cover. We'll just cover that so you think, oh, it's a G5. Ah, it's not. Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that the G5 had a red ring on the front. No, not a red ring of death. You can put it on pulsate and assign the color accordingly, so if I wanted it to just freaking, I don't know, let's do green. Why not? Green, boom, green, right? Cool. Cycle, just like everything RGB, you can cycle it so you can be completely RGB immersed. Now for me, I like to leave it on the music reactive because it matches my theme of my build with the purple, blue. Kind of actually is a lot like this album. Yeah, it reminds me of that album. So anyways, let's just keep going on. So let me turn the lights back on so we can illuminate everybody on what this device has to offer. So right here on the very front of the device, we're just going to start on the front, work our way around. Right here up front, you have a TRRS headphone connector. It will work with TRS, but it does both. If you have a headset that has a microphone, you're rocking and rolling on that. A knurled volume knob, which is a huge improvement over the G5, which, as you can see when I stack them, is very clearly not knurled. It is a smooth finish knob. That drove me crazy about that device. You have your microphone input here, which is phenomenal as well. So as I said earlier, 32-bit, 384 kilohertz is your sampling rate, so very, very high resolution. And as we talked about with the discrete amplifier, the way left and right signals are processed independent, phenomenal. The integrated controller doesn't deal with that. There's actually two, one for each channel, unlike the G5, where it's one IC handling all of it. Now here we go on this side. I'm sure this view looks familiar to many of you who own a G5, and you're probably going, well, is it really worth it? We'll get to that, just be patient. So you'll notice that you've got your scout mode. That button made a good return, which thankfully I really did enjoy that feature for gaming. Scout mode, phenomenal, especially for shooters. Playing Fallout 76 with scout mode on really lets you hear silo keys. So I really dig that and helps you directionally position where you gotta go, even if you're using a 2.0 headset. So phenomenal. SBX button. You probably go, oh, that's kind of dumb. Why is that? Well, you can disable the Sound Blaster engine completely and use pure, raw, unprocessed audio signal, which I like, and that's just done at the push of a button. And then you've got your gains, high and low. That is to drive different headphones. So if you have some Bear Dynamics, some AKGs, something that's a higher resistance, you have the flexibility to go, I believe, down to 1 ohm, up to 600 ohms depending on your mode. So you can put it on low resistance, which I found depending on the headphones, this can drive some headphones that are about 200 ohms, but I like having the headroom on high. Let's flip her around to the back. Nothing new to see here, except we did lose, we lost the USB port. Womp womp. But you know what? Sometimes you got to sacrifice something to make progress, and well, I believe that losing the USB port is actually beneficial. But you've got your normal optical line in, optical line out, and you can use either one of these as lines out or in, or optical in and optical out, which is really nice. I love that feature, so you can actually use this as an intermediate device between devices, such as a home theater system, things like that. And here is something that is conspicuously missing off the old G5, and that's a Dolby Audio logo. Well, you're probably wondering why. Well, this thing supports Dolby digital signal processing. That is right. This device has a built-in Dolby Audio decoder, which is freaking sweet. I love that. So, how does this thing sound? Why do I love it? What about it? Let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so here we are in the dashboard on the device right here. Boom, let's go ahead and make this full size so it's a little easier to view. So, let's go ahead and talk about this here, shall we? We've got all these different modes for all these different games, and basically each one of these is designed by somebody different. Sound Blaster team for a lot of the games, but your music is done by a DJ, your movie is done by a sound designer. You can actually, if I'm not mistaken, you can download different ones. Yeah, boom. You can do a new profile, which I'm just going to make this vanilla. And my vanilla mode has no acoustic engine going because, well, personally, yeah, I'm not a fan of some of the stuff for raw audio mode, but I like having the options here. So let's go ahead and talk about what each one does. Let's go into sound. So moving on, other than the acoustic engine, let's just kind of quick go around this. You can change how wide the sound stage is. It does use processing, which if you're a purist, wide with a really good set of headphones, you can hear some artifacting, but it does create a wider soundstage. It does what it's supposed to do. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Crystallizer does exactly what you would think. It basically sharpens up the presence in the audio signal. If you're familiar with guitar amplifiers, things like that, presence is basically what makes you cut through a mix, essentially, right? So turning the crystallizer on basically just brings the presence up on the whole mix. It makes it a little bit more abrasive on the ears if you're sensitive to high frequencies. Otherwise, if you don't have ears like a bat and can't hear 18K, well, crystallizer is phenomenal. I really do like it for that if you don't have the best headphones, because it can bring life into headphones that are darker in color in the audio signal. You can actually bring out the brightness in the sound by running crystallizer. So that is nice. Bass, same thing, but the opposite end of the spectrum. If you've got a set of headphones that are notoriously weak on bass, like a lot of people like to say the AKG Quincy Jones headphones I've got are, you can adjust that with the bass. I have found that if I really want it to be adjusted, all I need to do is put it at about 10 and that's it. But I usually run it flat, well, because I like the way it sounds with no signal processing. All right, smart volume, you can set this to night mode, off, and auto. The nice thing about this is if you're watching movies at night, even on a full sound system, basically when you put it in night mode, it acts almost like a compressor, kind of bringing everything into even soundstage, which is nice. I like that it's got that feature. And then Dialogue Plus, obviously, it enhances voices, things like that. As we've shown, the equalizer, you can draw it. Boom, we've got it. Or let's go ahead and reset that. Scout mode does exactly what it says you want it to do. You can hear beyond what you can see, so you hear people around corners. It makes life a lot better for competitive gaming. Here we got our Dolby panel. Basically with this, if you have Dolby Digital media, any audio that's encoded in Dolby Digital, you can decode it using this integrated decoder. So you can basically set the dynamic range, so night mode, normal, and full dynamic range. And then filter. This is important if you're running a more advanced signal chain. Now, you're probably wondering, I could get into the whole linear phase, no phase, what the difference is. For me, I prefer fast roll off minimum phase because I try to keep everything running at the same sample rate. If I'm starting to get into mismatched sample rates, which happens a lot with Dolby Digital, what you want to do is you want to put it on either fast roll off or slow roll off with linear phase on. And what that does is basically keeps everything at the same delay to the drivers in your headphone, essentially. There's a whole article about it, which I'll link in the description box, so you can read up more about that. But don't just judge the science and the numbers. Use your ears. As someone who does recording and audio work and stuff like that, I can tell you your ears are the best judge. Simply looking at data on its own and going, yeah, that makes sense that it would be better with one versus the other, that doesn't tell the whole story. Use your ears to be the judge of that. Here we go. In voice, with a microphone plugged in, you can adjust your voice to a whole bunch of different sounds, which we had that feature in the G5, and, well, I personally don't use it. I find it to be terribly annoying, and all of your friends, if you buy this and you turn that on, will please beg you to stop using it because it will drive them bananas. But it does work, so if you're one of those people who's shy about your voice on the internet, I know there's quite a few people out there like that, you can put it on one of these and hey, you're completely anonymous, which, like I said, I can get behind. Here's the lighting panel. We've already talked about all of this. Very cool stuff. And then our setup where we can specify for our headphones, they're only stereo headphones. I do not want it to be 7.1 emulated, which you can for gaming, but for me, I primarily use this for audio, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And I like to run it on direct mode. Direct mode is exactly what it says. It's audio in the purest form, directly from the source. All audio effects won't be applied to the output. I like that. So basically, that's how I prefer. Now here in your speaker selection, you can choose what you got: tower, bookshelf, desktop, or custom. The custom basically unlocks your crossover frequency. So if you're picky and you want it to be exactly what you think it should be, there you go. Yeah, this is pretty much it. Now you're probably going, well, in direct mode, you can't use any of this, right? That's where you're wrong. You can turn it all on and off without affecting your direct mode. And I dig that because direct mode is going to give you the truest form of audio. So let's go ahead and talk about my other favorite feature for this guy. And for that, we are going to stop the desktop capture stuff and we're going to bounce back out. Here's my favorite feature about this audio device. You're probably wondering why there's now a turntable in the view. Well, let's just go ahead and put an album down. And yes, I know there's hair all over this. Don't worry. Don't worry. We'll take care of that. So this is the Architects album. New one, just came out. As a matter of fact, this is number 139 of 1,000 produced for the limited edition, which came with the sweet slip mat that you saw on the turntable. There we go. That looks better. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to take my tried and true power bank because, well, you can use any standard 5-volt wall adapter for this, but for the sake of this demonstration, we are just going to use straight up power. Let's go ahead and bring the arm into position and lower her down, just like so. Bring my headphones up, and there we have it. If you can hear by the audio, she is running dedicated off nothing more than a battery bank. We're gonna try to do this with no edit, but you know what? We're gonna try here. So as you can see, when we pan down, she is running off nothing more than a battery bank. Audio is playing perfectly, which for me is the best thing in the world because guess what? Oh, the volume knob works. You can turn the Sound Blaster engine on and off, and you can turn Scout mode on and off just using a battery bank, using it as a headphone amplifier, which to me is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I can't even begin to tell you how exciting this is to have a phenomenal headphone amplifier that I don't need to have anything crazy like 9 volts or anything weird. I can just plug it into a 5-volt adapter and I am good to go, and it sounds phenomenal. So what do I think about this? I think this is the best thing since sliced bread. If you own a G5, go ahead and sell that bad boy. Pick this up. This thing is phenomenal. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. So that's going to do it for me on this. Let's go ahead and go back to the top and let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. All right, everybody, I think that about covers it. I covered most of the feature sets, the software, the differences here. So if you guys liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. I'm trying to do a little bit of different stuff here. So yeah, I really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you all very much. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you around on the next one. Later.